You ready for something a little different today?
Sure.
So the anecdote that we're going to start the show with is actually relevant to the episode.
Great.
So
I can't wait to hear it.
I was thinking of my Rolodex of useless stories, and it's running a little thin lately. But I was thinking it's been like a month or two, maybe more than that. I don't know. I have no concept of time. We do 2 episodes a week. Beyond that, if it's cold out, I vaguely know when it is in the year.
Sure.
Andor.
Yeah.
I want to watch Andor.
I do too.
It looks good.
Yeah.
It looks different for Star Wars. It looks like more of a, I don't know, Jason Bourne kind of espionage thing.
Sure.
I really want to watch that, but I haven't. And I think it's like 12th episode is about to come out.
Cool.
So that's been 3 months-ish.
Sure.
If it's weekly.
Yeah.
And we just haven't watched it because there's so much other stuff. Never mind just life happening.
Yeah.
There's so much out between shows and movies and games and museums and concerts. There's just so much stuff. But even in the world of TV, I think there are more than 500 scripted shows a year. So it doesn't matter even if you like something or want to watch it. The urgency just gets away from you.
Sure.
So if the world is that overrun with movies and shows, I think there's an obligation that if you like something, you have to talk about it.
Ah, I see what you're doing. Okay.
Or even something great isn't going to get seen.
Right.
Even regardless of intent, or if it's perfectly marketed to you or catered to your interests.
Right.
So we're bumping our schedule a little. We're interrupting our flow. We had all of December and November planned out, but I wanted to sneak this one in on a Tuesday because we found one of those diamonds, one of those probably the best artistic experience I've had this year. So this is going to be a shorter episode. It's a little different for a Tuesday. It's not as much a full analysis. It's mostly that, but it's also just a strong recommendation.
Sure. Yeah.
It's spoiler-free.
Ooh, we're doing spoiler-free.
I did my best.
All right.
But basically, this is in the theaters right now. If you like us, you'll like this movie. There's a lot to chew on. It's provocative and interesting and heartbreaking and beautiful. But also, I just wanted to do something on it while it was in theaters to try to help get the word out. I mean, that's all it. Look at Terrifier 2. Word of mouth is the only thing that makes a difference.
Yes,
unless you're one of the 3 studios that can just buy out every theater in the,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
So this is my highest recommendation that I can give. And this is to a movie called The Banshees of Inisherin. So it's written and directed by Martin McDonagh. If you don't know him, McDonagh writes and directs his own movies. He's also a playwright. We saw a play of his in college called The Pillow Man.
I always forget that was him. I always forget that.
Which is one of the most searing theatrical experiences I've had.
That play is so good.
Because one of our friends played one of the leads who does some bad things. And he's up there in my head now. I think of that guy and that performance the way I think of things I saw at the Globe.
Totally.
Or Royal Shakespeare Center. Like, it's just... Yeah, so he's on my Mount Rushmore of writers. But his movies, in case you've seen those, In Bruges... 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
That movie is so good.
Apparently it's divisive.
Ow.
I don't know.
It's only good.
I mean, people have been talking about Martin McDonagh more since this movie came out, but apparently a lot of people hate that movie.
I mean, his style isn't for everybody. It doesn't have mass appeal. I think it's incredible, but I could see someone being like, I don't think this is for me.
But yeah, three Billboards is one of my absolute favorites.
So good.
And it catapulted McDonagh to be one of the writers I just look out for. So when I saw that this movie was coming out, and I think we both did the same thing here, we didn't watch trailers.
No, I didn't even know what it was called. I knew it was a long title, and I was like, whatever, I don't care.
And
so we saw it.
And this is how we should experience movies.
I agree.
Especially, I mean, we've talked about trailers before, but it's just better to go in without any expectations, without having seen flashes of the climax. You know, it's just better this way.
Yeah.
And the other reason I didn't want to know anything is that Martin McDonagh specializes in character. And I knew this movie, it seemed like it was going to be all character, and it was. We could discuss any of the performances in this movie for a whole episode. It's everyone involved at their absolute best.
Absolutely.
You've got Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell in the 2 lead roles. And the basic pitch of the movie is it's 2 guys in their, entering middle age, and one of them doesn't want to be friends with the other one anymore. He's his best friend, and he just doesn't want to be friends anymore.
And it's such a simple concept, right? But it ends up being so much more than that.
And it goes some pretty wild and deep places
from
there.
Yeah.
But it's got that back of the napkin pitch that I think is important for movies, especially if they want to be successful on a wide scale. And in that way, it's most similar to The Lighthouse, being an intense two-hander. And like The Lighthouse, there is a classical bent to this story.
Yeah.
But it's not in setting. The Lighthouse was in black and white. It had the almost square aesthetic and aspect ratio.
Yeah.
And they were speaking in period dialects.
Right.
In this movie, they're speaking in Irish accents, so that's halfway there.
And it's the 1920s, so, it's old-timey.
The look of it, sure. But I would say the closest analog for this, the classical bent of Banshees of Inisherin, is Shakespeare.
Yeah.
In attitude, style, limitations, and narrative interest. So this is the part where I compare them without spoiling anything.
Okay.
I allude to things, but not in too direct a way.
I'm excited to see what you do here.
I really wanted to get out a recommendation for this thing. It really floored me. So the dialogue is densely written and lyrical. I don't mean that it actually rhymes, but it has that flow and kind of snap to it.
Yeah.
That really, the same, we were watching The Sopranos last night. It's got that same flow to it.
But it's not like in a overly written, unrealistic way. I believe that these characters talk like that.
But it's memorable and quirky enough that it definitely feels written. But it's really good writing.
Yes, right. So you're cool with it.
And the actors, because most of them have worked with Martin McDonagh before, of course, Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell were both in Bruges, so this is sort of a reunion with them. They all seem so comfortable in this role, in these roles, in these positions. So they're taking chances with their line deliveries and how they play these characters, where even the darkest drama and the nervous discussion that takes up half of this movie is cut with the best conversational comedy, which again is the compliment I extend to my favorite dramas on TV. Yeah. I think the best dramas have comedy in pretty much every scene.
Yeah, this movie's hilarious.
Whether it's Sopranos, Breaking Bad, what was I just thinking of? It just popped right out of my head. I felt it. Succession.
Oh, yes.
For a more modern example.
Yeah.
And you when you have that blend of comedy and drama, you can be talking about something serious that's more plot related, but the comedy provides such good characterization.
Yes.
Where it's only 2 hours, and then there's credits, you got to trim off of that, but we only see fragments of these people's lives. It's mostly those two characters, but there are side characters kind of peppered in. But the writing is so rich that we understand those characters' lives from just a scene.
Yeah.
There are some people in 1 or 2 scenes, and I have a death grip on who they are and what they want and how they think. It's just that, it's like when you sit down for a really good meal, like a meal you love at a restaurant you trust. That's how I felt when I strapped in for this movie.
Yeah.
And it just delivered on all of those levels.
Yeah, the comedy attaches us to these characters in a really personal way. The style of the comedy it doesn't feel like comic relief, and it's not trying to make jokes. It's just endearing you to the characters, which makes the moments of drama feel much more intense.
It's like a crescendo, because you build up all of this energy and resentment and character through comedy. And then when you get those moments of drama where it boils over, those huge character moments, it feels like Shakespeare. Or the same way we talked about House of the Dragon, the most dramatic moments is someone standing or walking up to someone else, or talking or not talking in a moment. And like Shakespeare, you have these moments of sharp, memorable violence. I would compare it to Macbeth in the unseaming, the way he cuts the guy open. King Lear and ripping out the eyeball and throwing it into the crowd. Hamlet with the fencing.
Yeah.
When you do get violence and drama in this movie, it's that level of memorable.
Yeah.
Where you will think about it in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
When you think about this movie, that's the image that's going to pop into your head. Versus, as much as I like action movies, you don't remember any of the kills.
No.
You don't remember any of the violence as something creative.
Yeah.
And limited.
In an action movie, no, not really.
And I love Shakespeare for that, that it almost outdoes other genres incidentally. There are other flourishes that remind me of Shakespeare. I'll kind of rattle through them quickly and not give too much detail. I'm trying to be spoiler-free. Death monologues. People giving sort of speeches after someone dies.
Oh, yes.
Basically
yes.
to the audience.
Yes.
When there's not another character there to hear it. So it feels almost like a soliloquy.
Yeah.
But it's not that performed as it would be on stage. It's just right there on the line.
It's adapted for movies, for film, yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of Ophelia's tension in a side character, the ambiguity, the tragedy of that character. There's an interest in music as something that provides community, as an outlet, as a cultural exercise. There's a total lack of technology.
Yeah.
Again, with the community and lack of technology, there's this pub energy.
Yeah.
I was surprised, the more I've read of Shakespeare's histories, the more there are talking scenes in pubs. I noticed this a lot with both parts of Henry IV going into Henry V, that's where some of your more open and vulnerable characterization can happen. There's that melancholy that you associate with Elizabethan sort of drama, where it touches on real universal humanity.
Yeah.
Like a lot of Shakespeare's tragedies, you get a timeless exploration of masculinity.
Oh, yeah.
Memorable animal appearances, which I know hit you pretty hard.
They did.
There's a backdrop of war, which is, again, common in the histories.
Yeah.
And the period piece that this movie is, it's not about a specific time or place. It kind of is, but it's more of a backdrop, more of a grindstone for the narrative.
Yes.
It becomes more of a metaphor than it is a work of historical fiction.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah.
There's a religious struggle, which again is in most of Shakespeare.
Oh, yeah.
And like I mentioned before, these potent side characters with subtle but complete arcs, where you can have 2 or 3 scenes with someone, even a really good actor, and you feel like, oh, that could be a Best Supporting Actor nomination. Like, it's that good with the writing and the delivery. Everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
And I don't mean these comparisons to sound reductive. I mean this, and you guys know how I talk in my language and what I value in art. This is meant to be the highest compliment to McDonagh, because he's working with some legendary ingredients, but the recipe for this movie is his own.
Totally.
Go
ahead, sorry.
Well, I think you can tie him closer to Shakespeare as another playwright, as another curious, masterful creator, just working in the medium that exists today.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, you can really tell he's a playwright. This movie has this, like, not only is it theatrical in its drama and its characters and its dialogue, but with the setting, a lot of, I think, like, really good Shakespeare adaptations, the way that they handle, like, the sets and the costumes and everything, the narrative feels like it's isolated, not necessarily like it doesn't take place in a setting or a time, like it acknowledges things going on in the world, but the events of the play feel so sort of just like sequestered off, and they're their own thing, and you're in this one little bubble of this narrative with these characters and only these actors for 2-3 hours, and that's it. And that's sort of what's happening with the setting here, of them being on this isolated island where you can look across the water and see what's going on in the rest of the world. And it's acknowledged and addressed, but you're working with a small core cast of characters, like only like 3 different sets. Right. Right. And like it's also like, again, like sequestered in that way, in that theatrical sense. And so I can really feel that Shakespearean theatricality there. And
the isolation means you know what to focus on. It has only a few moving parts, and those are all executed at such a high level that there is this total immersion in the story.
Yeah.
I feel like that feast or banquet analogy is important, because this movie does something that I can't really say any of Shakespeare's work did. Like, it's kind of bridging the gap between all the categories or genres that Shakespeare worked in. If you break it down to comedy, history, and tragedy. This movie is explicitly all 3 of those.
Yeah.
You've got a historical setting, which does inform parts of the narrative.
Yeah.
There's comedy in every scene, and there's tragedy at every breaking point.
And you can even read the friendship or the story of this friendship between the two as like almost the romance element of the comedy.
Right. And this, like, it's hard to describe this movie without feeling like you are contradicting yourself. I was trying to write about the tone a little. And at the same moment, this movie is funny, bleak, earnest, farcical, dark, shocking, brooding, heavy and light, and silly and sweet.
Yeah. It's
Like,
all those things.
On paper, that should be emotional whiplash that doesn't work and confuses you.
Unfocused, and it's
But on screen, like in practice, it works perfectly. It feels natural. It feels human. In the same way, an important or memorable day of your life can jump through 40 different emotions and tones.
It can be all those things.
And walking out of the theater, and this was the same feeling I got after we saw 3 Billboards, I just had this rush of emotion where the film felt, it felt like a complete work of art that it touched the ceiling. It reached for everything, and it found everything it was reaching for. It was powerful, and it's a rare work of art. I can't believe he did this twice. I've liked everything else I've seen from him. I love The Pillow Man, obviously, but I found this one, even more than anything else I've seen him do, genuinely heartbreaking.
Yeah, but it also didn't just feel like 3 Billboards, but in a different setting. Like,
No.
it was a completely different kind of movie, completely different style and message and theme. Some of the themes overlap, obviously, as all great stories do. But it didn't feel like, oh, it's just another 3 Billboards. Like, it's totally different.
And for dealing with heavy emotional stakes as the entire mechanic of the plot, it never feels cheap or like it's exploiting the situation. Not in a single frame does it feel like that. And I like movies that are heavy and sad. I like that, but sometimes it leans into that too hard, and it feels like, really, would they get hit by a train and then the puppy dies and then their spouse cheats on? Like, it just starts like this Forrest Gump of sadness.
Yeah,
where they're piling it on so much that it feels like they're just trying to get you to cry again.
it's just manipulation.
Yeah, and it stops feeling
not good
like
storytelling. Yeah,
believable, or I don't even know what the word is, but it just stops. It takes you out of it.
yes.
It feels like, oh, well, we need to be a tearjerker. But this felt like such a natural flow of a story. It just felt like the characters were breathing. And there the moments where they don't say anything, where they don't give like a swoony, tear-jerky soliloquy and then everything's okay, or it just didn't have any of that.
Right.
In the same way that plays just feel more real.
Yes.
That like satisfaction you get of coming out of a great performance is sort of unrivaled.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Walking out of that felt like walking out of a play, which is such a different feeling than walking out of even a really good movie, you know?
Yeah, and we haven't had that feeling in a couple of years.
No, I haven't seen live theater since pre-COVID.
Right. Yeah, and the last theater I saw, I think, was Shakespeare.
Yeah, I think it was that Macbeth we saw.
And I always get hit with that feeling. I mean, pretty much every Shakespeare performance I've ever seen, I get that invested.
Yeah.
And I leave with that sort of ringing just through my whole brain.
Yeah.
Just that happiness
Yeah.
of, oh, I got a bit more out of the text. I loved watching what the actors did with these roles. My favorite thing is when they don't use one actor for each role and they double up. And they have to change costumes, even if it's really quickly, like you just put the hat on, you take the hat off.
Oh, yeah, I love that kind of thing.
Because those doubling decisions are part of the storytelling. Because you're drawing direct parallels and echoes, especially if you can do it where you have side characters. And I'm alluding to a lot of the things I've seen done. But if you can have a father and a son played by the same actor.
Yeah.
Like and you can make someone have a conversation with them. I love all of those.
Yeah.
And I feel like giving the bulk of this amazing script to 2 really good actors means that they end up playing multiple roles, even though their names don't change.
Yeah, they're not actually playing multiple roles, but they are,
Because you see the relationship between these 2 characters shift.
Yeah.
You see moments of when they liked each other.
Right, so they're playing different versions of themselves is what they're doing. Yeah.
Because that like friendship breakup, it's sadness, it's frustration, there's nostalgia. You see all of these sides of these characters and just grinding on that for 2 hours.
Yeah.
In this subtle, kind of reserved, because it's more of a masculine thing. It's not as expressive and emotionally in tune as it could be.
Yeah.
But they are so good that they can do that work with like a twitch.
Right.
Something maybe you wouldn't see unless you were in the front row. So I loved being able to come back to the theater for a movie like this.
Yeah. No, me too. It was so good. And it has that special quality where like I'm able to connect to and relate to it so well, even though I am not an Irish man in the 1920s on an island. Like, there's literally nothing that connects me to these people other than, I guess, I'm white, and like that's it.
But that's
and I'm a completely different kind of white because I'm an American in the 21st century.
It
like
means something else.
There's literally nothing that's but I'm still so connected to these characters and the struggles that they're experiencing, and like it's insane.
Because good writing is human and universal.
Exactly.
And so is empathy.
Exactly. Yeah. So
cool.
it was just such a special movie. Please go see it if you can.
Yeah.
I don't know how widely it's playing, but you should go see it.
Banshees of Inisherin. I believe it's opening up a little as time goes on. So
yes.
Martin McDonagh, please support this movie. It is fantastic.
It really is.
It really just made me happy.
Also, if you just like love watching cute animals on screen, that's enough to go.
Yeah, we tried not to talk about that, but it is
so
fantastic.
There's a wonderful animal motif going through. So yeah, give it a watch. It's a good one.
Cool. See you Friday. We're doing a discussion about art you've changed your mind about. So that's me, Maggie, and or maybe we already did that.
Maybe
we're talking about The Witcher.
It's The Witcher.
Baptism of Fire, Chapter 4. It was really good.
It was good.
Fun. All right. Second Breakfast Pod at Substack, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Gmail. You know the thing.
All those things. All right. Toodaloo.